We didn't know what we didn't know. And once we started learning, we realized that, wow, we've gone all in on a business that is, it's gone from let's put a little lipstick on the pig to this is a full-fledged turnaround project.
I already love this conversation because, those that are going to be listening to this podcast, this episode, they're thinking about doing this or they're in it. You're kind of removing the facade. But I love how we're starting. Hey, before we talk about the payoff, let's talk about the reality.
Right.
So, all right, keep going.
Hey, before we jump into the podcast, we want to thank all our donors and supporters who make the Today Count show possible. It's through your generosity that we're able to shape leaders through this content and this podcast. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you find yourself coming across this content. All right, let's get to the podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Today Count show. I have with me today a friend of mine and somebody that I've worked with for a while, Geren Anderson. Geren is the CEO, and I have to look at my notes because I've known him as the CEO of such and such organization, but it is changing. By the time this podcast drops, it will be known as the Lantern Learning Group. I don't know if Lantern Learning Group is the right way to say it or the Lantern Learning Group, but Geren will correct me here in just a minute. Geren, welcome to the studio. Welcome to the show. Good
Thanks.
to see you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I love spending time with you and talking about businessy stuff. It's fun.
Was it good taking a drive out to the country?
It was. I kept waiting for the temperature to drop
Did
by 10 degrees. That did not happen. No.
Yeah, we don't have much of a breeze today either, so it's getting Texas hot here, pretty quick. Geren, I've been fascinated with the story of what you and your bride Melissa have been building, and I thought maybe to give a little bit of a precursor to everybody. You guys got involved in this. What did you say it earlier? What is the label for the business? Early child development.
Yep, early child development, child care, early learning.
Yeah. So you're an executive in the business sector, and then you have an opportunity. I do kind of remember how that opportunity came about, but what we're going to learn today is about this opportunity, how you and Melissa seized the opportunity from one location, and how you grew it, and how now it's beyond really growth. It's exponential growth. It's what I would call multiplication.
Mm-hmm.
First you had addition, but now it's kind of like your math is multiplication.
Right.
Right. It kind of went from, hey, let's do this shop right. And then you started adding, and then you use the term, or I would use the term, multiplication. So we're going to learn about business principles today. We're going to learn about the things that you've learned also in leadership with people, all kinds of stuff. So before we get all over the place, maybe just give us an overview of how did this whole thing start in the beginning as an entrepreneur?
Well, so we started this in childcare and early learning in 2009. We had dabbled in a franchise model that we opened here in the San Antonio area. Did that for about 7 years. I always tell people, that was our learning experience. And if you've been around a while in business, that means you got your tail kicked for a while. That's
Right.
That's the translation.
Right.
And that was exactly what
You
it was.
either winning or you are learning.
Learning, right. We were learning
Okay.
a lot over those seven years. Didn't appreciate what we were learning until
True.
later on, which is probably a whole other podcast.
Right.
But in 2009, we exiting that opportunity, just found an unexpected door opened for us into the preschool industry, meaning infant through pre-K primarily. So the youngest of learners. Had no experience in this outside of having kids of our own, but saw something in it that was really compelling to us, not only from what we were interested in, what we were passionate about, which is huge. But also just a market that was fairly, I wouldn't say recession proof, but recession resistant. And just quickly realized that we thought there was some and opportunities in this market to do some things in this industry, to do some things a little bit differently. Part of that by design, part of it because we didn't know any better, because we didn't come from the industry.
Yeah.
So we really had to lean into what we did know. And what we did know was that we were parents and we had children, and we had a community around us that had children. And a lot of them too had their kids in programs and early learning along the way. So we ended up, buying an existing preschool that a couple was exiting out. They were retiring out on the west side of San Antonio, in a growing part of town. And it was Christian based, which is not necessarily unique, but it is a little bit unique, a little bit less common than most of the other models. And so that was compelling to us. So when we bought when I say we bought this, we rolled over 401ks.
Oh, wow.
We liquidated our savings, college funds, everything we had
Wow.
to come up with a down payment on a loan to buy a business that we had no idea how to run.
So let's back up for a second. So you were working in corporate America. You tried the franchise route, and then you saw this opportunity. It connected with you guys because it involved kids. Didn't know anything about the business, but then, like we often hear in entrepreneurialism, you basically put all your bets in, and you went to purchase this preschool near your home, or in the
It's in the
general
same
area.
city.
Yeah,
It was probably, it was across town. It wasn't near.
Okay. So you obviously looked at the numbers, and you saw the possibility there. In the conception of this, tell me what was going on in your mind, if you can remember. Was this somewhat to kind of fix something that you thought maybe could be done better? Was it simply the affinity for kids? Was it what was, there had to be that bridge. What was that bridge that had you go from, like you said, you were kind of minding your own business, and then you see this opportunity? What besides the numbers, what caused you to get involved in this childcare business
Yeah, it's a great question.
or education?
Good point that, I was in corporate America
Right.
for, almost a couple of decades
Right.
before doing this. And while we had the franchise, I was doing both.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and you hear on Shark Tank, when if you ever watch Shark Tank,
Yeah.
and somebody says they're doing both, you see all the eyebrows perk in
Right.
the room, and there's a reason for
Yeah.
that. And we were no exception. We were not all in.
Yeah.
We were very much trying to get the best of both
You
worlds,
had
to
a
have the
plan B.
security
Yeah.
of corporate America, but the trying to dabble in doing something on your own. And
I think
sure
that's a
that
good
works.
principle we could talk about right now. Is, would you still hold to that if you were to mentor younger leaders or anyone that's thinking about doing something, whatever that something is, that it's better to be all in than it is to maybe there's a transitioning season. I don't know. What would you say about that? Would you,
Yeah, I would say you have to draw the line in the sand of what that tipping point is, where you go
at some
all in.
point? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's unrealistic at times when you hear people say, well, you got to be all in, because sometimes that's just not practical.
Right.
It's just not reasonable. That you have to do both for a little while.
You got to get there.
You got to get there.
Yeah.
You got to be able to pay your bills.
Yeah.
You got to be able to provide for your family. You got to be able to, do those things while you're ramping your business up. I think where a lot of folks can find themselves, is not committing to a timeline and that trigger of, when I get to X point, I'm going to go all in, because it sure is nice to keep growing, but still have that corporate salary.
Right.
And so you start kicking that can down the road a little bit, and that's eventually going to catch up with you.
Right.
And that you're going to have diminishing returns.
In a lot of
doing
different
both.
ways, I would imagine it could catch
Yeah.
up to you.
100%.
Relationally, physically, at least those two.
That's right.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of things are going to suffer once you hit that tipping point.
So did you keep did you keep the branding and the processes, or talk to us about that first unit? What was the life cycle there? What happened there?
Yeah, so it was a different brand.
Okay.
When we bought the facility, we got into it, quickly realized how much we didn't know. We didn't know that the facilities were not good. The staff was not good. The leadership was not good.
Boy.
The programming was not good. I could keep going on. If I'm going to get to the point that was good, it never comes. It was we didn't know what we didn't know. And once we started learning, we realized that, wow, we've gone all in on a business that is, it's gone from let's put a little lipstick on the pig to this is a full-fledged turnaround project.
I already love this conversation because, those that are going to be listening to this podcast, this episode, they're thinking about doing this, or they're in it. And, you're kind of removing the facade.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm very comfortable how
because this really is a success story, but I love how we're starting. Hey, before we talk about, the payoff, let's talk about the reality.
Right.
So, all right, keep going. This is good.
So, and that was, I still had my corporate job, and our tipping point was
Even then,
right at the beginning. So our inflection point was, like General Patton said, your battle plan goes out the window at the first shot.
Yeah.
The first shot had been fired, and our battle plan went out the window. And so Melissa and I, my wife and I, got together, and I said, hey, here's this is nothing but bad news. The good news is we can do this, but we got to go all in on this. Between my background, your background, what we can do, the opportunity that we see in the marketplace for a differentiated service that's wanted out there, we believe it. That was the thesis at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We can do this, but we got to go all in. So I left my downtown job up on the 13th floor, overlooking downtown on a Friday, and on a Monday was in the center with Melissa, answering phone calls and giving tours and figuring out who we were going to be, because we had to be something different than what we were at the time.
Okay, clarification. So was the corporate job something that you did eventually want to leave in your dreams? So now it was just a safety net. So it really wasn't that hard to leave in the sense of dream and vision. It was just difficult to leave in the sense of a safety net.
100%.
Okay,
that's a very good recap of that. Is that was always the vision, to be all in.
Gotcha.
Back to my point earlier.
Right.
I'm speaking from experience.
Right.
It was just certainly nice having that corporate job backing, that executive level, corporate job backing, payroll backing, while you were trying to figure this other thing out on the side.
Let's talk about one more thing, Geren, before you keep going, because you've already brought some really good things out. So those listening, maybe they're, kind of in that place now where they're thinking what this will bring to them is that sense of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And talk to me about the reality of freedom in running your own show versus, helping somebody else run their show.
Yeah, it is, it's freedom.
I feel a but coming.
There is a but.
Right.
But an immense level of accountability that you also do not typically have. It's not that when you work for somebody else, you don't have accountability. You do, but when you're writing your own paycheck, it's a whole nother level of accountability. Especially now when it's not only your livelihood that you're responsible for, but everybody who works for you as well.
And this is where you and I are on the same page. I mean,
Yeah.
This is you. In other words, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
When we work for corporate jobs, that's what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to do what needs to be done. But when we truly are on our own, we will do what needs to be done because we have to.
In corporate America, if you don't do well, if you don't do a good job, the people that you work for are still going to get paid.
Yeah.
When you
Good
work for
point.
yourself and you don't do a good job, the people that work for you and they're depending on you may not get paid.
A lot more responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So quickly, Jim, what we had to do is, okay, how are we going to compete? Because what we have now is not competitive.
You weren't losing money though, were you, or were you?
On paper, we were crushing it, and then reality set in, and we were losing money. We were so far underwater within 6 weeks of us taking over that we couldn't see the surface.
Was it a cash flow problem or a capital problem or both?
Cash flow problem.
Cash flow, yeah.
Yeah, cash flow problem. Capital problem, we were already all in.
Yeah.
You can't go as you can't go to the bank and say, sorry, I was wrong. I need more.
I need more.
That ship is sailed.
Oh, no. So just interject there. One of the things I learned as a young banker, and some of the listeners already know this, but maybe they don't. First decade of my professional life, I was a business banker. And one thing that they taught us as young men who didn't know anything about anything really is that when that savvy guy comes in, if it seems like he's asking for way more than he needs, you've got an experienced person in front of you.
Right.
But if they're just trying to get the loan, they're bringing in the skinny plan, and because they're coming begging and pleading, and that's when you're dealing with somebody who might do well, but maybe that's when you have to ask the harder questions, where you literally ask the customer, are you asking for enough money?
Right.
Because of how important capital is.
Right.
Anyway, this is fun.
Well, so we just within 6 weeks of us taking over, we just didn't have the experience to know the seasonality of our business.
Yeah.
Knowing at the end of May, a lot of your pre-K kids are going to be aging out and going off to kindergarten, or maybe they leave for the summer. We just didn't have the experience to really even understand that, nor did we go through understand the due diligence process pre-acquisition.
Wow.
Back then,
did you have a broker that worked with you in the buying of the business, or did you guys wing it?
We were winging it.
Yeah.
We were winging it for sure.
It's probably to save money, you're thinking,
and not knowing any better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Really not knowing any better and understanding how transactions like that worked and the right questions to ask.
Now, I don't mean to keep interrupting. You just keep bringing up good stuff. So I think one of the things that I have learned and you have, in all of our conversations over the years, you have made this very clear. At some point, you took a different approach because you surround yourself with professionals of every kind. In fact, if someone were to ask me, what do you know of Geren Anderson's leadership practices? One of them that would come right off the top of my head is he surrounds himself with people who know more than he does about the particular areas of concern. I mean, that's true, right?
That's 100% true.
So if you are thinking about, do I really need an attorney? Do I really need this? Do I really need that? Yeah, you need that.
And not just an attorney you can afford, but an attorney who's, if you're looking to buy a business, find somebody who's seasoned in M&A.
Okay.
It's a different, attorneys like anybody else have this
merger and acquisitions, right?
Yeah. Have their specializations. So, a real estate attorney, because there's real estate in the deal, doesn't necessarily make them a good fit to help you on the acquisition side of the transaction. So, surrounding yourself with people who've been there, done this a time or two before has been a good learning experience for us.
Great. So sorry to keep interrupting you, but this is really good. So okay, so summer's coming, and you're coming to some realization about many things that you've already mentioned. So this is great. You're doing great.
Yeah. So we started looking out at the competitors in the area because we knew we had to rebrand. We had to distance from the existing brand. What is that going to look like? What's our model going to be? And we're learning this on the fly, of learning what the industry is, what the models are out there, what differentiates the different teaching styles. And back in that, back then in the area, there was just a lot of people focusing on the facilities that they provided their services in. And what I mean by that, it was in our opinion at the time, it was excessive capex in facilities,
Mm.
putt golf or indoor playgrounds and all these things,
Mm.
which are totally cool, but that's very expensive. We didn't have the money to compete against that to begin with. Like we
Okay.
couldn't just come up with money to go do these things, nor did we have the facilities to be able to do these things. So as we were looking at the market and the current, what was being offered out there currently, it resonated with us that, okay, all of this excess, that's not what we experienced as parents. We had an amazing experience with our kids that went to a program when they were young. So what's the disconnect? And really, we were trying to bridge that gap of what we experienced as parents and what we're seeing in the
Oh.
marketplace. And
Was it a competitive advantage or not?
right,
Is the question you're asking.
yeah. And what we realized was it was pretty simple. Our kids it was at a church-based program. So they had a really good, obviously,
Where your kids went.
where our kids
Yeah.
went, so they had a really good spiritual development program, which was important to us. They were exceptionally well prepared for kindergarten. So the academic programming is really good. And then third, our son had the same teacher 2 years after our daughter. So outside of, if you're not, within our industry, retaining teachers is really difficult.
Hmm.
So we didn't appreciate that till later on when we saw how difficult that was and go, well, wait a second. Our experience was that they were doing something right to retain their teachers. Academics were really good, and they had a spiritual development programming. And we realized, so as we looked out into the marketplace at that time, it was just within 3 to 5 miles of the center that we had purchased. That was not an option. That wasn't a model that was being offered.
Hmm.
So we said, okay, that's where we're going to plant our flag. That's what we're going to build our model around. Came up with the Pillars Christian Learning Center's brand. And actually back then it was the Pillars Christian Learning Center.
Okay,
There's
right.
just one.
Yeah. In fact, it's funny that you say that because when I pulled up the website in preparation for today, I thought to myself, gosh, I can't remember. I mean, I know that the expression is plural, but I'm not sure if did they change. And so when I pulled up your website, I go, yeah, they sure did. They made it plural.
Yeah, there's a whole other sidebar marketing conversation about this when
Right.
you're positioning centers in the community
Yeah.
and the Pillars Christian Learning Centers, the community, or but the Pillars
Yeah.
Christian Learning Center, yeah, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, the
The
neighborhood
one
wants to
little
see it
S
as,
on the end is a
yeah,
whole thing.
the local neighbor wants to see it as center,
Right.
but you're centers.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you communicate that? Yeah, that's good.
Right. So anyway, we really had one shot to get it right because we had already put all of our money in. We'd gotten the loans. We were at about 170. We had about 74 kids in that June of 2009, and by April of the following year, we were up over 160 kids.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so we weren't going to be living under a bridge.
Almost
So that was
double.
good.
Yeah.
we
Good.
we could we could breathe, we could sleep at night.
Yeah.
We were working our tails off, and that didn't change. But the good thing was our theory got proven right. Our
Mm.
thesis got proven out that this was a market this was a model that was sought after and was just not only in our marketplace, but in our market in that 3 to 5 mile area wasn't being addressed in the marketplace, but really anywhere.
So your proof of concept then was academically preparing them for kindergarten, and then the spiritual development piece.
Right.
Okay.
And finding the best, acquiring the best talent you can and retaining them.
And what did you
That's
learn
hard.
about that? What did you learn about, and what are you learning, or what's the realities of this vertical and acquiring and keeping good teachers?
It's tough. It's tough. Because we're not competing against just other childcare operators. We're competing with every organization or every company out there
Right.
that is trying to acquire talent in this same, in this same compensation range. So the unfortunate reality of of our industry is, teachers oftentimes aren't paid what they should be. The challenge, the friction is to be able to compensate them how they should be. You'd have to have tuition rates that are so high that parents likely wouldn't be able to afford it. So that's the balance that we've been working on for 16 years
Wow.
to try to be able to provide a service that's affordable to families, but is gives you the ability to compensate these teachers even remotely as you'd want to. And so we're still working on that.
Yeah.
The industry's working.
Yeah.
on
So it's a moving target in some ways.
Yeah. So you gotta do the things that probably everybody works on. You got to work on your culture. You got to work on the benefits that you can provide. You got to make sure that they're resourced, that you're onboarding well, that you're training well, that you're doing all the things that everybody else tries to that is working on. We got to do the same things. It's actually funny because when we first started, not so much anymore, it's a little bit. The industry is taking us a little more seriously now than they used to.
I would think so.
But it was very much, oh, you have Christian-based learning centers.
Oh, how cute!
How cute! Bless your heart. That's and you're like, what are you talking about?
I know you well enough to know that as a competitor, you just wanted to punch that person in the nose.
Yeah, you have to compete.
Let's contrast for a minute, just to create context for everybody. So, in that first center, how many employees did you have?
About 25.
25, and your corporate team would have been you and Melissa, or
a corporate team of two.
Two.
And at the time, I don't even know if you could even say that because we were working in the center. So
that's what I was thinking. Okay. So now, what does it look like today? How many? You may not even know the exact number, but how many employees do you have today, and what does your corporate team look like?
So,
or centralized team, or whatever. I know you have different titles for.
Yeah, we call it our mission support team. We've always just not loved that corporate team label, but we call it our mission support.
I have a friend that calls their leadership team the pit crew.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's cool.
Well, so we have today, we have about close to 30 on our corporate team, our mission support team. And we have, as of last week, we're up to 24 centers in 2 states.
24 centers.
Yeah, so employees now well over 600.
Yeah. Yeah, that gets you up in the morning, I can imagine.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. That's fortunate thing about this, which it's been very hard. What's made it easy is we get up every day knowing that we're helping or hurting some family or some child or with their future. That's unique. I can say from experience that I sometimes go for years with not being able to answer that question if what I was doing really made a difference in this world. And now we don't have to wait years or months or weeks. Every day we know if we're helping or hurting the communities that we're serving.
That must impact your breathing positively, the way you look at oak trees positively.
Yeah.
Just those times where you can sit and ponder, maybe even when you face obstacles, kind of remembering the good, that it's doing. I can imagine that is added fuel. So, you're transitioning from survival to succeeding to now where it is, truly remarkable of what has happened.
Know your why.
Yeah. Know your why. That's good. So let me ask you some questions, and let's see if I can posture them right to where they make sense, because my intuition is kicking in here, and I want to see how you answer these questions.
There have been seasons in my life where I've looked back and I thought, what was that even about? Did I grow in that season? Did I get better? Am I still stuck in that season? If you have similar thoughts, I want to introduce you to a book called Story, The Art of Learning from Your Past. This book, written by Jim Piper, shares principles and stories that actually help us get unstuck and step into the future we've always wanted. Be sure to stop by leadtodaycommunity.com to grab your copy today.
and it's kind of not fair because I didn't really set you up for this particular question. So let me see if I can explain it. In my world and working with leaders around the country, I noticed that when they go from 1 to X, they can look back and say, when we went from 1 to 2, it was hard, but we went from, this number to this number, it was really hard. How would you describe the scaling process? Which in your memory, which has been the most difficult? Has it been going from 1 to 2, or from 1 to 5, or how would you describe that in the dynamics? I mean, how do you know when your indirect costs are worth laying over, the simple, you got your simple P&L for running one, once you figured it out, you had your simpler P&L running one organization, one location, and then you're at X locations. How do you know when you can add that? Some people call it overhead, some call it indirect cost, whatever. Does that make sense how I'm posturing the question?
Yeah, it does. We got, we had we opened in 2012, our second location. We went about 6 years before we opened our third.
Interesting.
And that's a capital question. It's a source of funding question.
Right. So how many years from the first one to the second one?
Three.
Three, and then double that to the third.
Correct.
So that says something.
Right. A lot of that was a function of access to capital.
Okay.
We were Christian based, so we didn't have access to SBA secured loans. So if you're a small business and don't have access to SBA, you as a banker know.
Right.
It's pretty tough sledding. So it forced us to look at alternative ways to raise capital to continue to grow. But also at the same time, in order to do that, now if you're going to level up that sophistication of, if you're going into financial partners or any kind of, if it's venture capital or if it's PE or if it's family office, if it's whatever, you have to level up your financial reporting and management. And that's what we did first, was we hired a person that was our first, really outside of Melissa and I, our first corporate team person was for finance.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially finance today. There's so many metrics and business intelligence that you can pull from finance that maybe, even when I was a banker, that we probably didn't do as well as, we do today. I mean, some of the CFOs I know around this country, many of them almost share COO, CEO, responsibilities, those three, and then maybe throw in a CPO, a chief people officer. It's almost like they become one mind. There's a first among equals, but there seems to be that thrust, how much data, has really helped make better business decisions, moving on, especially when you have to get more sophisticated, find out where the holes in your organization, because they're not obvious all the time.
Right.
Right. Did I say that right?
No, that's absolutely right. But the inflection point for us where I think it got really hard was not necessarily store based, location based. It was really market based. When we decided to go into a second market 5 hours away, that's where it got real, and that's where it got a lot more challenging, and we had to really start beefing up our support to be able to pull that off.
So your first source of capital was it owner financed or bank financed, besides your own pulling yourself up by your bootstrap, credit cards, 401k? So was it owner financed, or did you get bank funds along with your down payment
for the very first location?
Yeah,
all of the above.
All the above. Okay.
Yeah, I was all of the above. So we had an SBA secured loan that primarily covered the real estate. We had a seller note for the business.
Gotcha.
And then
so you put together the puzzle and made it work. When in the history did you seek outside capital for that expansion? And did that come? Did you give equity away? Was it a loan? How did you, or was it again both?
That came in 2018.
Okay.
And again, it was just because we had chosen to be Christian based in our programming and naming everything. It excluded us from SBA. So we partnered with a small family office that we. It's a whole other conversation of how we got put in touch with these guys, but they were a very small family office, and we did have to give equity away. Yeah, and that was back in 2018.
Is it generally true to say to the listening audience that when you're trying to get significant funds, it's difficult to get funds, just for this flat interest rate, or even if it's adjustable in some way, because people that want in, they simply want more of the reward, and so therefore you really are looking at equity, an equity swap, I guess is the way you would say it. You're receiving capital for equity. What advice would you give in that process?
So I think there's a couple of things that I talk to, and I love talking to, folks who are just getting started and maybe only been in this few years and trying to grow, because I think of a couple of variables. And the first is it's going to be different for everybody. One thing that makes it different for everybody is, I'm 55. My lens and is different than somebody who's 35.
Right.
We don't own our real estate.
Yeah.
But that's because it doesn't make sense for us to own our real estate given our timeline, which is just not enough. More, our revenue is more, is going to be worth more than our real estate. That doesn't make it the right solution. That's just our solution. That's what's right for us.
It's good.
At this time, where we're at. If I was 35 and had much longer for my son to appreciate.
So my son who's 40, real estate should be something he considers in his portfolio. I'm at 65, not so much.
Right.
Unless I'm going to leave it in the living trust, but not so much.
Okay. Yeah, that so our path was growing the number of locations, growing our revenue was much more valuable in our time horizon than the real estate was, and so that's why we've chosen that path. Real estate also takes a lot of capital. You got to park a lot of cash, so it's more difficult to grow quickly.
It's a long play.
Yeah, it's much more difficult to grow quickly when you're wanting to own the real estate, but it doesn't make it wrong. A lot of people, I would advise, hey, if you want to own real estate, that's great. You're 35, that's fine. You're going to grow slowly. You need to accept that. You can't. You have to pick a side. A little bit. Either you want to of how you want to grow and what your long-term plans and goals are. There's really no one right answer, for everybody on that.
Geren, there's a couple more business questions I want to ask you, and then I want to transition, if that's okay, to leadership questions.
Okay.
Not that they're unrelated; they are very much related. But what I find fascinating, and I do know that this question will be important for some listeners, because I'm actually in conversations about this. So you have gone from one brand now to multiple brands, but you've created what's the right thing to call your new name? Does that represent a holding company, or what? How would you describe that? And why did you choose to let's just say envelop multiple brands versus take the Pillars Christian Learning Center and flush that throughout the organization?
Yeah, great question. So as we continued to grow, we had we were partnered with a small family office for six years. We got to a point, as most relationships like that go, either there's getting too many zeros, in the deals, or it's just, time that they want to go invest in other things, whatever. And we got to that point, and we went through a process last year and recapitalized with a new equity partner, much larger, which is kind of the natural progression.
Right.
to try to grow to, 75, 100 locations over the next 3 to 5 years. That's intense. But we were ready for that. We've been building our organization and our processes and our SOPs and all the boring things that you need to do, and making
Which
sure.
entrepreneurs hate.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got, you got
SOPs are standard operating procedures. They're processes that we need to create so that we're doing the same thing consistently and we're all doing the same thing.
and you can scale with it.
And you can scale it. Yeah.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah. And so really worked on a lot of those things for a couple of years and preparing for a much more rapid pace of growth. So I feel like we did the right things the right way in that regard. Did a lot of other things not right, but that is one thing that we really did. I feel like we did the right things at the right time. So the equity partners that we have now are fantastic, primarily focused on education, just as passionate as we are. It's one thing that they really, when we went through this process, you hear the horror stories about private equity, and a lot of it they will even say is deserved, reputation. And the early childcare, early learning, the market, private equity has descended on our industry pretty heavily in the last 5 to 10 years. Reason being, a lot like other industries like veterinary or assisted living, very fragmented industry. So a lot of consolidation.
Yet high demand.
High demand. So a lot of consolidation starting to go on.
Interesting.
A lot of aggregation, a lot of roll up. So meaning, roll up is when you start gathering, buying
getting
three
things underneath your own umbrella.
Right.
Yeah.
How you do that was a big part of our strategy and why Lantern Learning Group is coming into existence this month.
So many don't do that well. And I have found that just because someone's bigger doesn't mean they know how to do it well. In fact, sometimes the organizations that are bigger, they are a little bit too optimistic and maybe a little bit sloppy. It sounds like you have gone into it with much more humility, based upon your bruises in the past, and we're more prepared. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
It was important to maintain what has been successful for us, which was the quality and differentiation of our programming, offering the markets something that's not readily available. They want more of it. It's not not rocket science. Now, how do you do that at scale? So the Pillars Christian Learning Centers was the only brand that we had. Last year, we acquired our first non-Christian brand, they call it a traditional model, play-based model. But the reason that we did that is we went through a 4-month process of figuring out what are we going to grow up to be, and what are we committing to? What are our non-negotiables over the next 3 to 5 years as we continue to grow?
That's a good exercise right there.
Yeah, and it was that we were going to be a purpose-driven network of schools aligned with shared, aligned.
Who was the we that was involved in that conversation?
It was our corporate team, right along with our equity partners, our financial sponsors, along with some consultants that came in to help guide us through that process.
Yeah, good.
So knowing that the path of least resistance when you're growing in our industry like this, and it's the same with others, is roll up, buy a brand, absorb them into your umbrella company, and now the differentiators. What do you do with those? Do you leave them as their existing brand? And there's plenty of organizations out there that you have an umbrella company X, and underneath you may have 12, 15 operating brands underneath them. The other pendulum swing of that is you rebrand everything. You have a branded house. The first one is called a house of brands. You have a whole bunch of them. Or you have a branded house that when you acquire somebody, you're going to roll them up, and you're going to rebrand them to your brand. Our strategy is in the middle a little bit. That we're focused on having fewer brands that all have a shared value set and differentiation in the marketplace. So to house that, then that's where we just developed the Lantern Learning Group. That's the umbrella company, the parent brand.
So I heard you say the. So are you using the or using just Lantern Learning Group?
Lantern Learning Group.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll
Good.
work
Good.
on that
Good.
together.
Yeah.
It's a new name.
Yeah. Our marketing person's rolling over right now. I'm sure when they hear this. Sorry.
It's hard not to put the word the because it like sets up anything. The light, the house. You know.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. Well, and underneath that, we'll have three, maybe four operating brands, and then that's how we're.
So the tricky part then is if I'm getting this right, you coach me. So we're leaving such and such a brand in its community because it has more value and fits. Well, I guess more value would come from and fits, that local organization. The challenge, I guess, would be is that you mentioned, standard operating procedures. How difficult will that be to see consistent in the bowels of the organization, regardless of the brand? But maybe that's kind of part of the learning process as well, or maybe there's a core set that applies to everybody, and yet maybe some nuances. I don't know. What's that?
More the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a core set. Really, what is tricky is you have brands out there that are very well established in their communities, that we're very thoughtful about when we acquire of what are we going to do with that brand. Because the reality is, in order to help yourself compete and for operational efficiency, is to only have a smaller number of brands for brand density, for brand recognition, for marketing purposes.
Logical.
And at the same time, it's hard to manage 12 different websites, 12 different sets of collateral, 12 different operating procedures. That's difficult.
And if you ever had a central phone bank, then you have to route those things specifically.
Right.
That's so just in my head because I'm working with that right now.
Yeah, so that's why we landed on very much kind of an in-between hybrid approach of what we see primarily out in our industry.
This is
now.
Really good. The first thing that came to me about 15 minutes into this is that we're going to have you back on the show. First of all, because there's so many things we can talk about. What I'd like to do is maybe head towards home, and let's talk about Geren Anderson and maybe some of the leadership things that you have learned throughout this journey that you've been on, whether it be how to take care. One of the questions that I have for you that I just it's at the horse at the starting gate wants to ask you this question so bad. As the business has become larger and more complex, do you find yourself still in that massive tension that you and I have talked about 100 times about how much time are you investing thinking and working on the business versus getting sucked into the operating and such part of that? Because I think a lot of people would like to know what your journey is, what your struggle is, because it's common to all leaders. And then maybe what we can do is talk about, so who is Geren Anderson? And because you're probably learning a lot about him, speaking to him in third person as if he's not here, but as you step outside of yourself and you look at him, you look at this journey, what have you learned about him? What is he learning? What are some things that he would share about leadership and what he's learned? But let's start with the first one.
Okay.
As it's become more complex, do you find the need to even set aside more time to think, more time to problem solve, or does the business just suck you into that black hole? Or what's your wrestling match look like?
All of that. I feel like I'm at my best.
Yeah.
When for the organization, and our team members and the families that we serve, when I do have that time to think, and to really just spend time with myself, being thoughtful about where the organization is heading, how what are we doing today, how can we what are some things we could try? I'm an idea guy,
Yep.
but what I always tell everybody is my ideas aren't always good. Yeah, that's a qualifier. I think that sometimes people are like, "Oh, he's an idea guy." I'm like, "Well, idea guys are good, but idea guys got to really be self-aware that all their ideas aren't good. But sometimes you're not aware of that, and that's where a leadership team, a really solid leadership team surrounding you that you or enable them to be confident enough to tell you that, hey, that is indeed an idea
That we should vet out.
that we should talk a little more about
Yeah.
before we do that.
Yeah.
That's a good leadership team
Yeah.
around you, and then be able to have the confidence with each other and the maturity to talk
That's so
about those
hard to
things.
do though, Garen, because when you think about it, if you're kind of that imagination guy, that's what I call it, and it's a God-given gift that really all of us need to get better at. But a lot of that comes natural with you. All right. So in order for your organization to continue to march forward, it kind of needs the antithesis of that. It needs people that are putting the SOPs together, doing, and those are not idea people. Those are not your creatives. Those are your operators. Those are the ones who like that. Yet when you come back from a retreat, when you come back from some downtime, you come back fully loaded. Do you find that this team that you've put together, are they like, holding on for dear life for what you're going to be bringing? Or have you conditioned them now to where they go, he's going to bring back 3 or 4 ideas, and we probably need to take it through the vetting process because some of them have turned out to be amazing, exponentially changing, transforming ideas? Or do you see everybody hiding when you come back, and they can just sense it,
Right. I think I've grown. I've evolved.
Okay.
I think there was a long time. I think they dreaded
Yeah.
when it came back from a conference because it was a sponge, and Melissa and I
Oh,
both, and we'd
okay.
come back and we'd have, hey, there's these 15 things that we think we need to try,
Yeah.
and it was just overwhelming. And so
Sure.
you try 15 things and you don't do any of them well, and so all 15 things, all those ideas must stink. Well, no, you just didn't do any of them well because you
Yeah.
did all of them at the same time. You didn't, and so I think I've gotten better at prioritizing and really thinking through those things myself before I roll those out to the team to make it a little more digestible, and then really just encouraging and almost mandating debate and and dialogue and idea sharing.
I've
But
seen that in you. Yeah.
yeah, but that's difficult. It's difficult. A lot of people, especially now as we grow larger and we get folks that are joining us that for the first time, we're so fortunate to start bringing in super amazing, experienced people that have worked in other organizations and in our industry. Remember, we do a lot of things differently, and some of it was by design, some of it was by default because we didn't know what normal was. We
Right.
didn't have industry experience, so
Right.
we were just trying to figure it out. And we always say, hey, we're trying to be the best childcare company around, no doubt, but we're also trying to be the best company that happens to be in childcare, and it's 2 different ways of looking at it. But when you start integrating professionals onto your team that have amazing experience that's different, that brings in a whole other, it's been a whole another learning experience for me to continue to reinforce, hey, we need to value these ideas that are coming in from other organizations. But there is also another lens to that the people coming in from other organizations need to also value what we've learned
Yeah.
over the years and why we do some of the things we do. And I always say, hey, somewhere there in the middle, there's 2 good ideas on each side of the table right there, and somewhere in the middle, there's great. And that is hard to do.
Yeah.
I think the tendency is hey, they're pros. They know what to do. They know how to do it. And so just let them do their thing. Now, my challenge to that is, I agree to a point as long as we're all in alignment of what we're trying to do, because sometimes what we're trying to do is by design different.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to challenge if this is the way it's always been done and we're trying to be different in the marketplace, those don't reconcile.
How is that? Yeah. Is that helping us or impeding us?
Correct.
Yeah.
that's where that's where you have to just make sure you, and it's difficult, is to be able to instill a culture of dialogue and debate and
That's good.
get, we're going to come out of this, and
That's good.
some of us ideas are going to be liked, some of them us aren't, and we're going to get mad, and we're going to get our feelings hurt, and we're going to have to go sulk a little bit, and then we're going to get back in tomorrow and high five and keep going forward with what we've decided on doing for the organization, our strategic plan, how we've decided to do this to begin with, because it just doesn't reconcile. Let's keep doing things the same way when you're by design wanting to be different.
Yeah. If I were to ask you, looking over this journey, what are the three leadership attributes that you think that whether knowingly or unconsciously or consciously that you have practiced during this journey that has helped you to get to where you are today? I'm going to already put one on the table, so you'll get four if you can come up with three others. I think one thing that's very clear, it's similar to this thing that we talked about with ideas, but I see a learner in you, always learning. Patrick Lencioni has a process called the working genius, and he created an acrostic called widgets. And I can't imagine that you are not naturally gifted in the invention side of things, maybe the wonder side too. I don't know. But if you are a WI, that's what it would stand for. I mean, that's the turbocharged part. But you also have some tenacity. So, if I were to take a guess, I'd say you'd probably be somewhere like a IT or a TI, invention, tenacity, or tenacity, invention. That is a leadership characteristic I see in you, that learner that's always wants to get better. But what are some other things that you would, share with the listening audience that, these attributes have served me well on this journey?
Great question. I'm competitive.
Okay, that's good. That's
I like
tenacity piece.
I like to win. Back to our conversation earlier. A lot of times it's kind of like, oh, you're in the preschool business. That's cute. You're like, no, it's unlike like everybody else. We have to compete.
Yeah.
We have to be good. We have to market ourselves well. We have to brand ourselves well. We have to operate well. We have to sell well. We have to do all the things everybody else has to do. And that's fun. Especially getting to the end of the day and knowing that you're doing it for a really good reason. I think what's served me well is staying grounded with.
I'm taking notes
why,
here, Geren.
Why we're doing what we're doing. And it seems like the more we grow, the more of my time I utilize reinforcing our why within the organization. Of why are we arguing right now? Let me remind everybody why we're arguing in the room. We're trying to find a solution to this that's better than how we currently do it. And if we do that, we're going to provide a better better development program for our teachers, who's going to be able to teach these kids better, and we're offering them a better shot to be successful in life. Wow, that's a why.
Yeah, and to keep the why in front of everybody.
Keep it in front of them,
micro and macro.
Right.
Yeah.
And drill it down, make sure that, everybody understands that. And that takes intentionality. It takes time. It takes repeating it a million times. And
almost sounds like an effective football coach, It really does. Because you can't give the speech once. Yeah.
Right.
It's not just about, the scoreboard's part of it, but it's not all of it. It's how you get those numbers on the scoreboard, and why, and together, and that's good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm super, passionate that, and this is probably scar tissue from my corporate life. Yeah, I'm super, super passionate about making sure that the people that work in our organization are fulfilled, and they understand, and they're growing, and they're developing, and they understand the impact they're making every day. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be every year. It's every day. Just reinforcing collaboration and respect for others' ideas, and trying to always find that new great that could be a combination of two or three or four goods. And I I think I've grown a lot in that, because I think there was a long time where I had a hard time not believing all my ideas were the best at all times.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that comes. I've forced the issue of my ideas because I thought they were good, and then they'd belly flop, and I'd realize, oh, I'm flawed as well. All my ideas aren't good after all. Maybe I don't have to fail every time. Maybe I can get some good sound advice from the people around me who've been around also, that have also seen a lot and been through a lot, to poke holes in my ideas before we go do some things.
You're intense, but those people that know you also know that you have a sense of humor. Right. And I think this is what I'm learning at my age, is that, God made me competitive like you. God made me want to win. But what he's teaching me as I get older is also how to laugh at myself. And I noticed that the more I can laugh at myself, the better I'm able to compete. Have you noticed that too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. It's very liberating.
Yeah. It's very liberating. Less insecure. In fact, is to say that I said less insecure. I didn't say I wasn't insecure, right? So just be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm more insecure than I realized, and then get a little chuckle out of that, and then walk around myself and say, why am I? And
who benefits a lot from knowing that as well is the people who work for you.
yeah, they go, oh, I thought I was the only one not qualified.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think, I've grown a lot in that over the years as well. Not feeling like I always have to be the guy who's right or the smartest guy in the room.
One last question.
That ship had sailed a long time ago. People figuring out that was not the case.
I don't know. You're a pretty smart guy. You're a pretty smart guy. One of the smartest guys I know. In fact, you and I are going to be in a retreat together here in a little while. And I know there other guys are going to get a lot of benefit from your fellowship with them. This doesn't have to be the last question, but I think where I would like to end, and then if you want to add anything beyond this, please feel free. As long as I get your commitment to come back on the show.
100%. I love it.
Because we just scratched the surface. I think, frankly, we could just come here and say, hey, what do you want to talk about, Geren? And I think we'd have a blast.
I agree.
All right. So maybe that's
make it very easy. I appreciate it. It's fun.
So you're a man of faith. How much have you wrestled with how faith integrates into, what you're doing day in, day out? Just tell us about that journey. Because, there's a lot of new Christians who are part of the Lead Today community. And, they're trying to figure that out. And I have the joy and opportunity to work with them and try to explain my own view. But I would love it if you took a minute here and just said, so what does that look like, for you?
It's actually topically so relevant right now because we recently integrated our first non-Christian brand. And for the folks who had grown, who've been in the organization for a long time, that we knew nothing else but our mission being very clear to grow God's kingdom. But now you're buying some 6 centers up in Dallas that aren't that don't have any kind of spiritual development programming or culture or anything else. What is, the first is, oh, here we go. Selling out.
Selling out.
And so, where I think we're being successful in reconciling that is trying to accomplish the same thing in different ways as a biblical principle. The apostles went out to speak. They knew they couldn't do the same thing with everybody. It would work the same way.
Exactly correct.
And I consider our mission no different.
Mm-hmm.
This is not seceding from the union. It's how do we do the same thing in different ways? How do we reach more people? And if it's not spiritual development, we call it character development. When you're talking about 2, 3, 4-year-olds, is it a whole lot different?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, it's not.
Right.
But how do we frame that in our programming to add that component in? And if it's, some point down the road, it solicits the question of, hey, I like what my kid's learning. I like what these people are about. What is it about that? And it'll all come back to, hey, this is who we are as people. This is this is how we started. This is what we're based on. And when, if we get some families in these other organizations start asking questions, and we've done our job.
And I would say too, Geren, that some people won't get it. and I don't know why some won't get it, but I can be kind of sarcastic in this particular topic because of, the Lead Today community. The Lead Today community, we provide mentoring and coaching and advisement to leaders. That's what we do. And we come in with a servant's mindset. We don't know everything, but we want to be faithful. We want to be available. We want to be teachable. We learn a lot through the process. And yes, we are a faith-based organization. What we have found, especially once we've learned how to do this better and better, is that, first of all, people check us out often before they invite us into their house.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get a lot of pushback because it doesn't take much digging to find out that we're a faith-based organization. So we find a lot of it naturally comes from our culture. It just breeds into our culture because a lot of the wisdom literature that we pull from anyway, comes from, at the very least, the book of Proverbs. But I'll say it this way. I'm not talking about necessarily people who label themselves Christians. I'm talking about people who you can see live it out in their daily life. I can tell by the difference in who mows my lawn. And I can tell when there is a person of faith that I'm dealing with around our house from those who don't eventually. And not to say that those who are not believers are dishonest or anything like that, because I've worked with some really great people. I think that is exciting because I think what it's doing is opening up your front door larger. That's how I look at it than it was before, because before you have the word Christian in it. And so that in a way can possibly filter out people who say they don't want to deal with that for whatever reason. But now they have an opportunity to walk into your doors and your culture is going to be, what it is. That's a good example. So you have some work to do about expanding the minds of others and how they think about the mission.
Yeah, I think, it's going back to, hey, we're a purpose-driven network of schools that are aligned with shared values. Those values are not inconsistent with my faith. And so it's doing things in different ways to try to accomplish the same thing. We will have brands that their purpose is not to be a mission field. That is right. Directly.
Right.
But
I'm looking even at your new name for your company overall, your umbrella name, Lantern. Am I reading too much into that to know why you picked Lantern?
No.
Yeah. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, right? To be light of the world. So I mean, that's pretty cool, if you ask me.
Yeah. I agree. We feel like our it's been very fulfilling career so far, being able to take the Pillars Christian Learning Centers from its infancy and just a theory to proving to our industry that this is a model that is sought after and is needed and is scalable and investable. And because we don't want to be the only ones doing this, that we want others around the country who are doing this. We're the largest Christian-based, faith-based, Christian-based preschool organization in the country now.
Wow. Congratulations. I did not know that.
Well, thank you. But we have 17.
Yeah.
So, so I want to keep it in perspective.
Right.
Out of all of them out there, it's still super, 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 super small.
Yeah.
What we're hoping to open people's eyes are, and I think we are, is that this is not some niche, little cute business model.
And don't ever say that again.
That's right. That it's something that is that's for real, and a lot of people want more of it, and we want to try to do as much as we can, but we also want others to have the confidence to go, hey, that will work. We've talked about before that. And I'm getting back onto the Pillars Christian Learning Center brand, but excellent academics and spiritual development is common and sought after and highly regarded at every other level of education.
Yeah.
I always challenge people, tell me the top 5 private schools in your area. And 4 out of the 5 are probably going to be Christian based.
Oh yeah.
You go, I'm an Aggie,
Right.
but you look in the collegiate level, and Baylor, TCU, SMU, just going around Texas, and it's does anybody question the academics of those?
Well, right. Even
Absolutely
those
not.
that are a little wider, say, than Christianity, that I have worked with and have talked to, they would call themselves God and country,
Mhm.
and meaning that is there a God? It's a God fearing school. They may not have a certain doctrine, but it's a God fearing school. So it's like it's very difficult to find private organizations that, for whatever reason, that's an interesting question in itself. Why they wouldn't? Why they don't leave that behind? Why they don't leave faith behind? Faith comes in it.
Mhm.
It's like the book of Romans chapter 1 is that, it's creation certainly should at least make us curious, and how crazy it is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love what we do. We're glad that it's given us the opportunity to not only continue to scale the Pillars Christian Learning Centers, but now it's given us the opportunity to branch out to some other brands and reach families. We're realists. We know that they are not likely going to choose a Christian-based program. So somebody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Why not us?
Yeah. Why not?
When we know what we're going to deliver, the values that we're committed to, the purpose that we're committed to, why not us?
My imagination already went into an idea of elective events that are made available, through that. But don't share that with your team because they might get upset. Geren Anderson, CEO of, watch this, I'm not going to say the word the Lantern. I did not say the Lantern Learning Group. Thanks for being with us
Well,
today.
thank you. I'd love to come back. I hope everybody listening to this got something out of it, a thing or two, and I love sharing
Absolutely.
what I've learned over the years.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us on the Today Counts show. We got so much more planned for you. So stay tuned and stay connected on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. And remember, today counts.